Hello and welcome to episode 86 of Tom's Hirschsprung's podcast. I am delighted to be joined by Lexi this afternoon. Lexi, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks so much for coming on. We are going to go through, well, your very recent experience of being a mother to a child with Hirschsprungs, and sort of everything that you've learnt along the way, because I'm well aware that the last 7 months or so that have been quite the roller coaster. So we're going to go through, well, a lot of those as well. And I guess we'll start kind of where we usually do, with the birth of, I believe, your third child, Emmett.
Yeah, so Emmett was born December 13th of 2024. So we just hit 7 months. And I thought, he's my third baby. I know exactly what I'm doing now. It should be easy peasy. Um, it was not. First, I went in, I think at about midnight to have him, and I have him at birth, like my two boys at birthing center. So I'll have them wait 4 hours, then I get to go home, and then they come over, like the midwives come over and they check on us afterwards. And I just found like that after having my daughter in a hospital with like military, I just wanted like a little bit more freedom and just somewhere more comfortable to have my babies. And so I did the same with Emmett after having my first son there. And I go in at midnight and end up having him at about 4:30 in the morning. And it was pretty anticlimactic until like the very end when I had to push and he had the cord wrapped around his neck like three times. And so I was like, okay, once I got him out, I was like, you know what? That's all. That's it. I did the hard part. We're fine. He was just fine. All of his vitals were fine, except for by the time we hit about an hour after I delivered, his respiratory rate was very high, like very high. So instead of staying for 4 hours, they had to stay for six. And then he hadn't like passed any stool yet. And they're like, you know what? It's fine. We'll come check on you within 24 hours. Everything's fine. We technically give them up to 48 hours to pass their first like meconium, but it he's going to be fine. You're really good at paying attention, like very attentive to like different things, whatever. So we go home. Everything's fine. He's eating normally. And then still no bowel movement. He's urinating just fine. Um, and then at about, I would say like 19 hours after I delivered him, he kind of stops eating. And then he kind of gets a little bit, I get lethargic and floppy, but he's not so floppy that I'm so concerned. I'm thinking, okay, newborn baby, he's very tired. He went through a lot. Um, and then right about then is when the midwife comes over and she's like, all right, we're going to check you out. You're looking great. Let's check on Emmett. Great. We weigh him and his weight's fine. It's not like he hadn't gained anything or that he lost dramatic in the time. Um, but while she's there, I told her, I expressed my concerns about him kind of like lagging off of eating. And she's like, okay, well, maybe it's your supply. Let's just supplement. And I was a little bit bummed about that because I'm like, I don't think I gave myself enough time, but I am more concerned about if my baby's okay. So, of course. So, my husband runs out, he gets formula, and within, I don't know, she waits to see like how much he eats. And we put half an ounce in a bottle, and it took him almost 3 hours to get not even the most minute amount out of that bottle. And the whole time it's just like dribbling out of his mouth. So then I kept thinking something's wrong. And my midwife's like, just give him a little bit more time. And in my head, I was like, there's something absolutely not right. Something's not right. I don't like it. So we have a really great children's hospital here in Fort Worth, Texas, and it's called Cook's Children. And she said, if in your heart, you do not feel like something is okay, I highly recommend that you take him to Cooks. So within the hour that she's there, or after she, we talk about it, she's like, maybe do that. Well, my husband and I get Emmett in the car and we're just driving. And I look over at him. And of course, I'm sitting in the back, paranoid mom, no matter if it's my first or my third. And I see him and he starts vomiting like bile. And I knew what that was like because I had a hyperemesis while I was pregnant. So I just knew exactly what it was immediately. And then he starts turning blue. And so I hurry and I rip him out of the car seat and I'm like yelling at my husband, like, you have to go faster. We have to get there. Something's really not right. And at that point, he's not unresponsive, but he's completely floppy. And so it takes us not that long because my husband is speeding down the toll road. Probably, I think he was going like 120. Luckily, the roads were pretty free because it was winter and we took an expressway and it was early morning. So anyway, we get there, we end up we entered the emergency room in the wrong way. We jump out, all of our doors are wide open in our car. We just left it. We ran inside and it's winter time. So everyone and their mom is there. The line's almost out the door and I'm holding him and the nurse at the front looked at me and he just knew something was wrong. And he's like, all right, mama, tell me what's wrong. And I guess I should preface that I'm not a practicing nurse, but I did graduate nursing school. So I kind of know the lingo to rattle out like what's important, whatever. So I'm holding my baby and I'm trying not to, outwardly panic. But I just said, okay, my baby is 24 hours old. He's lethargic. He's turning blue, yada, yada, yada. Okay, cool. He looks at me and he goes, okay, mama, everything's going to happen really fast, but we're going to take care of you. Follow me. When we get in, we're here for maybe a minute. We've overpassed everybody because obviously, airway is of utmost importance. So I follow him, we get to the back and there's literally a room of 20 people and they are ready to just take Emmett, lay him down, start working on him, getting everything handled with him. And as soon as I passed him off, I kind of just lost it. It's just, I was able to keep it together to get the information out that I needed to share. But after I knew that he was in like safe hands, okay, like I can kind of fall apart. Anyway, by the time by the time I set him down and, they start working on him, they're getting IVs started and, everyone's rattling off all kinds of stuff. And even though I know certain like medical terminology, when it's your own kid, it kind of just goes out the window. It doesn't matter. And then my husband, he doesn't know any of that. He's an IT. So he's very smart, but he knows different things. So he's asking me different things. And I'm like trying to process and then share it. And then, it's in and out. And anyway, they get him like stabilized. He never, didn't have a heartbeat. He was never, he never coded or anything, but he just was getting IVs, no response. They're moving him, no response. Anyway, by that time, they're like, okay, I think we kind of know what it is, but they didn't share that information. They're like, we need an attending surgeon to come and, check on him, whatever. We get like that kind of information. And this happened. We were there for maybe an hour and they're like, all right, we'll send him to the NICU. We're fast. So then at that point, we're in the NICU and we just wait for the doctor. They come in almost immediately with an x-ray machine. They put it over the top of him and they're like, all right, so he has a lot of gas and we can tell like, obviously he hasn't passed meconium. We think he has Hirschsprungs. And I'm like, what is that? What is that? And at that point, the physician literally leaves. He's like, oh, I have a phone call. Let me go. And I'm like, oh no, what does that mean? Like what is happening? Sure enough, one of the sweet little nurses, she looks at me and she can tell that like, I just need something like I need more information, but clearly the doctor is busy. And from a medical standpoint, like I understand there's cases that are higher. So she just goes, "Hey, I'm going to get a chaplain in here." And in my head, that is worst case scenario. Why are you getting a chaplain? You're telling me awful news, like something very bad is going to happen. So at that point, I literally lost it. Fell into my husband's arms and I'm like, my poor baby is, 25 hours old at this time and I'm going to lose him. And then about 30 minutes later, after I spiraled, the chaplain came in and she's like, no, 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 like I'm just here because the nurses thought that you could, use a little bit of comforting. And that's all I want to do for you. And so I kind of like word vomited on her and I just said, "So is my baby going to be okay?" And she goes, "Well, I'm just here to comfort you, but the physician is going to tell you everything." Within 5 minutes of like her coming in, he goes, "All right, so here's what it is. It's Hirschsprung's. We've confirmed it by, or, I've mostly confirmed it by x-ray, but we will need to do a biopsy." And I'm like, "Okay." He's like, "But I've seen it a lot. This is what it is, you know." And I'm like, "Okay, still means absolutely nothing to me. That means nothing to me. I don't know." And then he starts saying, "Okay, we're going to do surgery for this. And then this is like the possible outcome. We might just do a pull through, but it also could be like a button or a colostomy or whatever." And I'm just thinking, my baby is a day old. How do we do this? Um, but yeah, pretty much that's kind of where that first day ended, where we got like a definitive diagnosis.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. What a 25 hours. I mean, that's and I can't imagine you slept a lot during that time as well.
oh, no, not at all. No, no, no.
No, that's what I was thinking. So not only are you going through everything you've just been through as a mother having just
Mhm.
given birth to a child there's clearly something, there's an issue and you know this. You also haven't slept like barely a wink. And then the physician goes, "You've got Hirschsprung's anyway, I've got to take a call, bye." I
Yes.
I can't I can't imagine how on earth that feels.
It was traumatic.
Oh
It was
yeah.
it was absolutely, now that, especially now that I think about it, it kind of gives me like the body chills, because if that was somebody else, I would just be like almost like watching a movie where things just happen so dramatically, so fast and so out of control, and you're like, "Man, this is a terrible movie. This poor mom, this poor family, like I can't imagine a baby going through that." And I'm like, "That's weird. I lived it and it's kind of just part of our story now, like just what happened."
Yeah.
So,
I've had people explain it to me as in they sort of it's slightly out of body experience where they feel like they're watching themselves go through this, but they're actually going through it. I don't know if that makes sense.
oh, it really does. It truly does. Like I said, almost like a movie. I
Yeah.
kind of feel, when you're watching a movie and they kind of do slow motion and their body kind of drags, and it's just, I feel like I was in that for a while. It
Yeah.
didn't just last that first day or our NICU stay. It was for months. Um, and I feel like I kind of am starting to not quite feel that way, but at the same time, there are days where it's just another gut punch of something new. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like we mentioned at the beginning. Emmett's only 7 months. I mean, we're talking, very, very young in terms of his Hirschsprung's journey. And
yeah.
I'll sort of preface by saying that every journey is different. There have been people that have said to me, "Oh, it's you had Hirschsprung, so everything's fine by the time you're 5 months." And you think, well, no, not necessarily. Some people have pulled through and then, everything's fine. Some people it's a bit different. Everybody's different. So that's why I'm always very careful about saying, "Oh, well, you're 7 months through now. Everything's cool." Um,
Right.
not necessarily.
If you're lucky, then yes. Then, you get your surgery and you're everything's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, we hit that first day and then they just said, okay, this is what we think it is. We'll be back tomorrow because he was born on a Friday, of course. So Saturdays, physicians aren't always in. So we had to wait until Monday and he went completely he couldn't have any milk, which he wasn't going to really take it anyway, but that made me feel sad. So for the next shoot 2 days, pretty much, yeah, 2 days, we did I didn't get to feed him. I didn't get to do anything. He just laid in his little incubator. They ended up putting a PICC line in him to do like TPN. And then they also did their like biopsy. That was something. he 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 completely pretty much at that moment guaranteed he had Hirschsprungs. When they did the biopsy, it immediately came out. It actually hit the cart. Of course, physicians at this point know not to stand at the end of the table.
No.
I'm so happy nobody was at the end of the table. He shot everything across the room, and she's like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and just tell you, he does have Hirschsprungs. Before this biopsy even comes back, he does. But we'll, of course, put this in. And now I can kind of giggle at it because at the time, obviously, I was not in the giggling mood. But now that I can replay that whole situation back when he had the biopsy, it was a lot. A lot came out. And yeah, it was just quite an experience. But yeah, we had that biopsy. We did PICC line, TPN. It was confirmed through the biopsy. And then at 4 days old, he ended up having his pull through. And at the same time, when she went in, she was like, he also has inguinal hernias. So they repaired those at the same time. And, I mean, I noticed that his stomach was very distended, but of course, I didn't know what Hirschsprung's was. So who's to say that that's not his normal? Like I knew it wasn't normal for my other two, but for him, who knows? So yeah, he ends up having his procedure, his pull through, and his inguinal hernias repaired at the same time. And in my head, I was under the impression that he has this surgery and he's good. We're in the clear. We're in the clear. I, of course, hadn't, I didn't know.
Oh, how
So
would you?
how would I? Yeah. So I think, it's all good. I see him, they bring him back after his procedure. And I mean, I'm glued to this hospital. I'm obviously not allowed to be there for his procedure, but I'm there. I'm not going far. I'm waiting. They send text messages like, hey, procedure has started. Procedure is going well. Patient is tolerating procedure or anesthesia and procedure. Da, da, da. I think his procedure was I think it was maybe 5 hours long, the longest 5 hours of my life. But by the time they texted me, we were there. I was running. I was meeting him at the hallway so that we could be there to walk him back. And somehow we missed him. We went one way and they went another. And so by the time I got there, I'm looking for him everywhere, And when I tell you I'm running at 4 days postpartum, I'm running down these halls. And then I'm like, okay, I can't find my baby. They're like, okay, he's actually in his room. And the way that I cried because I missed him by 4 minutes, like I just wanted to be there to support him. He's asleep. But I I couldn't handle him, not being there or not being there for him. We ended up he tolerated it well. His little incisions were great. They kept him let's see. They kept him off of like milk for about 7 days, which is also really hard. So they kept him still on like PICC line, TPN. And then we ended up doing a total stay in the NICU for 2 weeks. We got out on Christmas Eve, which was like a Christmas miracle. It didn't last that long though. And because he had a procedure, we got to come home and then he was doing great. He was spitting up a little bit. but they were like, okay, that's fine. I would send pictures in, and they were like, you know what? Actually, that's fine. That's normal for what he's gone through. If there's no fever or anything, you're good. Great. Well, on New Year's Eve, he had his like circumcision, and that shock of having that done sent him, it reverted him. He stopped going to the bathroom, like everything kind of, let's see, I think 3 days post-op, he did have a bowel movement on his own, and it was like a party. We threw an entire party, and he was still having bowel movements, I guess, every day, and they were small, but again, he's brand new. He's not eating a ton. It's great. Okay. Then we're going back to New Year's. He has his circumcision procedure. He again tolerated that very well. He was pooping literally up until that was done. And then that night, we ended up in the NICU again because he started vomiting and stopped pooping altogether, and then became very hard, very distended. And we ended up staying there for about 4 days. We got, or he got, yeah, he got treated for, or admitted and treated for enterocolitis. And that was sad because I thought, okay, he's kind of like a normal baby, like he's quote unquote, like everything's pretty normal. And then it's just kind of like a reminder, it's not quite normal. Um, and then he gets out at 4 days, and then it kind of goes a little bit back to normal. But then we had like a little bit of a backslide again, and then they taught us how to do irrigations. So they're like, okay, we're going to do irrigations, and you're also going to do dilations. And so we just kind of stuck with that. And that was a miserable experience. That's not something any parent wants to do to their kid, even though it's to benefit them. It's not a great experience. I cried, he cried, and it wasn't keeping him regular. It wasn't making him go to the bathroom. So then we skipped to he's 2 months, and his surgeon says, you know what, let's try Botox. Okay, he goes in for that about an hour procedure, gets Botox. He starts pooping immediately. Immediately. It just, Botox was what worked for him. So we did Botox, and that got him. It got him going. Well, then he gets sick because it's still wintertime and all the germs, and he has siblings, and gets sick, knocks the Botox out. So we go back to irrigations. And then we do that a couple times. And at about 5 months, we decide, okay, the Botox probably would have been out anyway. Let's do another one. And so I guess that's kind of where we are now. He's had 2 Botox procedures, and it's actually still working. So there's that. But we have rough days where I still have to irrigate him. We no longer do dilations. But irrigations, I mean, we just did one last night. It's just, you kind of read your baby and see, is he still distended? Has he gone to the bathroom today? What are we doing to combat those issues? And I guess I did skip a really big thing. At his last Botox procedure, they prescribed Senna. And that, honestly, I think is what's keeping us from going back right now to do another Botox, because it just gets it going. So we do Botox, we do Senna every day. And I think really that's where we're at. We've had a GI team added to his like surgical team, where we all work together to make sure everything's okay with him and just keep him going the course. And they think he's doing really well right now. We did just start solids. So that has thrown a curveball
Yeah.
a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. It's been a
Wow.
lot.
Yeah, you've packed an awful lot into 7 months. If I may, I'll just sort of go back, way back to sort of
Yeah.
almost the beginning. You mentioned a condition that you had, hypermesis. I hadn't
Hyperemesis.
heard. Sorry,
Oh,
say that.
no, it's hyperemesis gravidarum.
Ah,
Uh,
okay.
that is extreme morning sickness. Um, so I had it with my first pregnancy. Then I had it with my second pregnancy and it got worse. I had it with my third and it was even worse. So essentially, I vomit while I'm pregnant between 15 and 30 times a day. Yes, it is awful. It is accompanied with not always, but extreme weight loss in pregnancy, no appetite at all. Water, I don't even, I mean, I ended up this time, I had a Zofran pump, I had Zofran medication, and then promethazine suppositories. So I was just heavily medicated on anti-nausea medication. And even then, it it helped, but then it caused another issue. I ended up having a bowel obstruction and yeah, pregnant, and it was awful. So I think that's also why I'm so uh, sensitive, not that I wouldn't be, but sensitive to the fact that not being able to go to the bathroom is an awful experience. I actually stopped taking the medication because the vomiting was less severe than not going to the bathroom. Like I didn't end up going to the bathroom for 29 days because of the medication. Yeah. And that's what caused my bowel obstruction. And that's like, I have so much sympathy for Emmett because I went 29 days, but he's dealing with something that's a lifelong, and I could at least advocate for myself and say, hey, I'm not feeling well. He's 7 months old, or 1 day old and can't tell me anything. I just have to kind of read between the lines. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah, because I'd never heard of that condition at all. But that's so interesting because um from the name of it, I didn't think it would be anything to do with bowel or anything. And I guess it kind of became to do with bowel. But
Yes.
it's interesting that the two have a slight connection in them.
Yes. And I think more so, you know, it was the medication that I was taking that caused it. But I have, even though I know that Hirschsprung's is a congenital, disease, I have played with the idea in my head, trying to rationalize why he has Hirschsprung's. I'm like, maybe it was the medication. Maybe it's because, I have my third baby um with hyperemesis. And like one of the things that it can happen with babies, whose moms have hyperemesis is like extremely low birth weight. You know, they I just that wasn't even a thing. He's my biggest baby, actually. He was born at 7 pounds, 8 ounces. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a huge baby because I had a 5 pound baby. And then I had his brother who was 7 pounds even. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's a big baby for me,
Yeah.
And it's just, anything I could do to rationalize because in a way I wanted to blame myself for giving it to him because I'm just like there's a reason. There has to be a reason. It's not a one-off. It can't be a one-off. It's a one-off. Like I just so happened to create a baby where something just didn't quite, not everything matched up and he ended up with Hirschsprung's. And so
I
I
I think, yeah, you've gone through what I would say all parents potentially who have a child with, and not just Hirschsprung's, lots of
right.
conditions. But I've had this conversation many times with parents where they say, "What did I eat? What did I do? Did I not do enough exercise? Did I not?" did I eat the wrong type of carrot? Or, and you go,
Literally.
you know, and you go, no, it's from every doctor and expert. I mean, I'm not a doctor, but from every doctor and expert I've ever spoken to, it is honestly, you know, incredibly bad luck. I don't know if that's the right way, but it's
It feels that way,
it,
you know?
it's that kind of, it is obviously passed through genes from what we know and things like that. But there is absolutely nothing you did, said, ate, didn't eat.
Right.
But it's natural to go, what did I do, rather than just go, oh well, it's bad luck, put it down to bad luck and move on. I don't think that's a normal. I think it's normal human emotion to go, let me retrace my steps, I guess.
Exactly. Like what can how can I need to rationalize it. Like
Yeah.
there's actually a way or a reason that all this happened. And sometimes there's not.
There isn't, and it's difficult because you're almost then kind of going, well, I can't really rationalize it, and that doesn't quite sit well with everybody.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. Sometimes I still, like I said, I'm like, oh, it's my fault. Like I had hyperemesis, and then I'm in these the Facebook groups online for like families with who have Hirschsprungs or like a child who has them, and there's moms in there all the time, and they're just like, okay, like help me. Like I know I did something, and then everyone's like, listen, we know it's a congenital birth defect, so let's break congenital down. It's genetics, like your genetics. That's what happened. And then we have not yet done genetic testing for my husband and I, but I am very interested to do exactly that. Like, I just want to know, like, is there something that, like, did I carry something? Did he carry something? Like, you never know. But it's odd because it's our third child. So I'm like, how did we skip if that's the case? If it is genetic, how did we skip? And then we got third baby with her.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think from what because we had a conference with Reach, I think 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, where we had a doctor who talked about genetics. And obviously, you take genes from the mother and the father, and there are these five genes that effectively you need in order to create Hirschsprungs, I guess.
Okay.
And and obviously, if you have all five, and they all need to be sort of passed on at once, but not every child will take every gene from every parent. So that's how it was sort of described to me. I saw all manner of diagrams and whatnot, which makes it easier for me to understand. I'm far more of a visual learner than anything else.
Oh, me
Um,
too.
but it's yeah, so that's how it can sort of because I thought that, why do I have it and why do my three brothers not? And it's but it's just luck. I think I can't really, or bad luck or good luck or whatever.
Right.
I can't really rationalize it like that. But it's a tricky one because you want answers, and and I mean there's still loads of testing going on and loads of research going on, and there's loads of people across the world doing for some fantastic work in trying to sort of nail it down and go, okay, can we find out, you know, before you have a baby, do you carry these genes? Is there a possibility? But then I guess in your situation, why would you ever test for Hirschsprungs? You've had two children without Hirschsprungs. You've never even heard of the condition. Why would it even cross your mind to even think about that?
Exactly. And I think because we did do genetic, you have your run of the mill genetic testing that, they offer you. And of course, I always say, yeah, because I am more so, if something's quote unquote like wrong, I would more so want to be like mentally prepared and then have a, set plan to what we're going to do. Like how are we going to help, you know, with not the issue, but whatever is going on. And it kind of like chokes me up because I feel like I was cheated out of that. And but I have to tell myself like it's not something that everyone is going to experience. It's not something that is on everyone's radar. It was never on my radar. Um, so you take it with a grain of salt. It's just it is what it is. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It definitely it's Hirschsprungs.
Yeah, yeah,
Those,
no,
yeah.
it's definitely an interesting topic and something that will run and run and run.
Yes.
And I know there's another medical term you picked up on as well, which I hadn't. I mean, I've heard of hernias before, but I'd never heard of hernias within Hirschsprungs. How did that kind of come about?
So they didn't exactly say what had caused it, but from what I know about hernias, and especially so he had them like inguinal, so it's his groin area, so one on each side, and it was just like that built up pressure. So from the distension and everything, and then maybe I don't know, maybe he was trying to go to the bathroom, and I mean he didn't even have any tone to his rectum. So I really don't know. I mean, he just had two inguinal hernias whenever they went in. She's like, we had them, and she actually called me. I forgot this. She called us mid procedure, and she was like, "Hey, he also has hernias," and I said, "Fix him." Like, I'm not going to put him like subject him to two different procedures when you're already there. Like he's already put under. Why would we ever subject him to two different procedures? So she fixed him while he was there, and it was done also laparoscopically, just like the pull through. And he still has his little scars, so at his groin area, and then the other ones for that they did for his actual pull through. And they're just it's almost like it's just a little reminder every day when I change his diaper or whatever. And it doesn't sting as bad, to see them anymore. But I will say, I it was a trigger for quite a while to just kind of you'd see like him, he's doing so well, in theory. I'm still doing dilations and irrigations, but they say like, hey, that's good. Like he's getting everything out, and in my head, I'm like, no, what would be good is like he goes to the bathroom by himself and he doesn't experience like vomiting whenever he eats, or, it's weird. But I will say, like, at Cooks, we have a phenomenal team. Um, his his surgeon is Dr. Jones, and she is top of the line. And actually, she just asked if her and her colleagues are actually writing a book on Hirschsprungs. And that was like his last appointment, which was a couple weeks ago. And she asked if she could include Emmett and his x-rays in it. But she did say it's going to be a couple years, which is totally
Oh
understandable.
yeah. Yeah.
But that is something that's going to be happening. So I hope it's okay if I shared that. I'm sure it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah,
She's
it's
the
fine.
sweetest. She's the sweetest. Um, but I mean, I feel like any kind of help that parents can get and know that they're not alone is great. And I really do think that her book is more aimed at doctors, like at doctors for, to share like medical findings. But
That's
it's
brilliant.
cool. It's kind of cool.
That's fantastic. Well, when that comes out, make sure you let us know, and
Oh, I so
we'll have
will.
you back on again, and we'll dissect the book and see what we
I
know.
know. That's super cool.
Fantastic. Oh, that's absolutely brilliant. And just while we've got sort of 5 minutes before the end, future wise for Emmett, I know he's been through, and you've been through, and your husband's been through it so much in the last 7 and a bit months. And he's been through lots of procedures, and we talked about hernias and the pull through. But and we know we talked about a little bit about him now, but what do you see for him, sort of medically and non-medically, in the future?
I am hoping, I really, that we can just keep him comfortable for the time being, keep him going to the bathroom, pooping on his own. And if that means more Botox procedures, that's great. If it means upping his Senna or changing different medications or honestly anything, I just hope that he can essentially just be like any other kid. And when, issues arise or whatever, that we have, like a good foundation and know the first steps to take and the teams to go to and the people to ask questions. I guess, like I was saying earlier, we're in those Facebook groups. And honestly, hearing other people's stories, even though there are some that are scary and some kids backslide and then they have to have different procedures, there are a lot of kids who go on to lead just almost completely normal lives in the sense that they still play sports, they go to school, they do all these things, obviously with, you know, advocation and say, like, hey, these situations may arise. Here's how we, you know, deal with them to his teachers or whatever. And if that's what it takes, then that's what it takes. And I just want him to know that he has a family who loves him and who's there to do absolutely anything we can to support him and make sure he does exactly what he wants to growing up and as an adult. So,
Yeah, no, that sounds absolutely brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on, sharing your story. As we said, you're only 7 months after giving birth, so thank you. You're obviously in the thick of absolutely everything at the moment, so thank you so much for coming on. And I know it goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Wish you, Emmett, your husband, the rest of your family, all the very best for the future, and let us know how that book gets on.
oh, thank you so much for having me. And I definitely will.